Welcome, guys. Hope you're having a great day at Subsurface. I'll quickly start jumping into the content that we have. I think we have roughly 30 minutes um, of time, 28 minutes now. But so what we'll do is we'll probably have some material to cover. Maybe we'll go to like the 20-minute mark, 22-minute mark, maybe, and then leave some time for questions. I'll try my best to monitor the chat, but in case there are any questions that pop up even in the middle, feel free to interrupt me, and we can obviously have a good conversation as well. So, with that said, just gonna start talking. Let's start with the overview. I mean, my bio. Basically, a little bit background about myself. I've been doing data engineering, data integration work for over 20 years now. I'm building data platforms at scale for both on-prem in the past and then now on the cloud, using a bunch of tools and technologies. Initially, obviously, it was a lot of like packaged applications, things that you would buy and then implement, and then doing a lot of open source development using a lot of packages that are available out there. I have strong experience working in building event-driven and batch applications. Worked in various different companies, primarily in the retail and financial services space. And like I said, I am a data engineering lead in the product analytics space within Wayfair supply chain technology group. So that's a quick background about myself. A little bit about the agenda. We'll quickly go through the agenda. Give you a quick overview of Wayfair, what we do as a company, and then go into the product analytics area, what it means to organizations, what it means to Wayfair, and then the challenges that we faced, and then how did we go about overcoming those challenges, and into state we are in right now. Obviously, we'll share a lot of the technical details as much as I can, and then happy to take questions if you guys have any afterwards. So Wayfair, as a company, was founded about 20 years ago, or maybe a little bit over that, and it's headquartered in Boston, Massachusetts. It's primarily focused in the huge home goods market. It's a platform that connects thousands of suppliers with millions of customers. People come in and shop at Wayfair, like probably like thousands and thousands of people shop in Wayfair every day. It has a very strong presence in North America, which is US and Canada, and then we have a good presence in Western Europe, in countries like UK, Germany, and Ireland. Now, Wayfair is also known for its proprietary end-to-end logistics network that we have built on our own, and it enables us to drive faster delivery speeds, reduce damage, and as a result, lower costs, which we then try to pass on to our customers. So let's talk about product analytics. What is product analytics? So product analytics is a process of gathering and transforming user-generated data into insights that reveal how customers interact with the product. Capturing and analyzing usage metrics provides good information about the quality of the product. Um, Things like error rates, anomalies gives us an idea of what the user's friction points are, and what we need to do to overcome those. It also helps an organization to track and analyze the user journeys. So, for example, what are the steps a person is taking, a user is taking on the application to fulfill a particular, request or initiate a feature or something of that sort. So it helps you visualize all of that, and then basically gives product development or engineering managers the opportunity to course correct or change, if they need to, if they see that there is some anomaly there. Besides actual user applications, backend services can also be analyzed to understand the impact those services are having. So, for example, we recently worked on a project for the fulfillment optimization team. We performed extensive analytics on the data the service was producing. At a high level, this service was responsible to provide recommendations for order fulfillment based on product availability, cost of shipment, delivery time, things like that. So we analyzed the data set. It was quite complex, huge volume of data, and then we built KPIs around it to see how efficiently the service was being used. How efficient the service was in doing the forecasting, so to speak. So, for example, we calculated a percentage of like cheapest routes that were taken by the recommendations that were made, and also the fastest route taken and things like that. So, a bunch of metrics that were calculated and captured and then shared back with the business. Okay, so let's move on. So at Wayfair, there was a need to quantitatively identify opportunities, analyze and measure the impact, generate actionable insights, thus enabling technology teams to make better data-led decisions to make the progress faster against their goals. But there were a bunch of challenges with the way we were doing this within Wayfair over the course of the years. The processes that were being used lacked cohesion. The work was done in a very like ad hoc manner with various degrees of fidelity. No standard process was being followed, which basically meant that we could not trust the data. The results were often inaccurate. It would take time to generate the KPIs that were needed and then get feedback from them, right? So, all in all, no standard tools were being used. Collection reporting was time consuming and all that. So there was definitely a need to put a framework in place so that the product managers, engineering managers would be empowered to build and own their metrics through self-service dashboards. Also, there was a need to standardize the interface for curation, dashboarding, and metrics calculation to generate consistent output. So there was also a need to make the curated data available, searchable, explorable, right? So, it was not just restricted to that particular domain or that particular business area. It could be opened up to other teams who would be, interested in looking at the data. So the approach, so because so this approach would improve our velocity significantly, right? Because we have more than 30 plus applications within supply chain, and it'll help the product managers to shift their focus more into discovery work as opposed to doing this work around building out the KPIs and things like that. So, what were the technical considerations that we had to take into account? So based on the functional requirements that I just mentioned on the previous slide, we started building a foundational layer of data pipelines. Our goal was to ingest new data sources that were available out there into a common storage area for easy access. We wanted to follow we followed software engineering, data engineering principles to build robust pipelines. Obviously, a lot of emphasis was given on data quality and also on observability and alerting because the scale was just too much. Also, as mentioned, we collected all the curated data with the domain model so that it would be easily accessible by the product teams. And whenever there was a newly generated asset that we would create, right, we would basically ensure that that is appearing in the data catalog. So getting a little bit more into the details of our implementation. This shows basically the progress that we're making from left to right. Typically we would ingest the data. The data could be coming in. It may be already in a table in GCP, or it be some event stream that's coming in. For example, Google Tag Manager would generate a lot of these events from our applications. We would collect that, store it into a collated layer. We're calling it collated layer. Then we would curate that data. So do a lot of like data wrangling, typical data wrangling steps to clean the data, get into a form where it can be easily be queried on. As I said, right, and I'll cover a little bit more details in later sections, but um, the data was quite complex at times, and so it required us to do a lot of like curation techniques. Duplicates handling was also a concern because depending on the volume of the data and how the services and applications are generating the data, we want to make sure that the data is clean and also complete at the same time. So we built in a lot of like controls in our pipelines to ensure that the data is clean and available and queried and available for people to consume. And then obviously we want to present this data in a fashion that would make sense to the users. And so we had, we are using a Looker for most of our reporting and uh, visualization. Okay, no questions to now. Cool. So quick overview of the tech stack. The infrastructure, I think I probably just said it. We are all on Google Cloud. Wayfair is on Google Cloud. A lot of our applications are running on GCP. And then we are obviously using tools like Datadog and Slack for monitoring and alerting. For DevOps, since we built elaborate CI/CD pipelines for doing all of the work, we use Jenkins and BuildKite to do a lot of our deployments and automated testing and stuff. We are using Cloud Composer, which is basically a wrapper of Airflow within GCP for a lot of our pipeline development. So typically, Airflow would be the orchestration tool that we would be using, and then call either like GBQ queries or Spark jobs or just Python code and stuff like that. And then we're using Google Data Catalog for metadata management. For storage, a lot of our backend storage is in GCP, in BigQuery, just because it's easy to access, and a lot of our users are like analysts of the data, so they are very adept with using SQL to get all the information that they want. And like I said, we are using BigQuery for a lot of our SQL developments, uh, and also using PySpark for some of the use cases that we have. And the presentation layer is Looker for dashboarding, and then LookML for doing a lot of the development and stuff. Yeah, there is no Dremio in this whole ecosystem just yet. I have been exposed to Dremio as a product, but not really used in this ecosystem. Sanjeev. But there's not to say never, but there's definitely a potential. It's just we wanted to basically ensure that first of all we are getting ourselves out there, showing the value to all the different teams that we are supporting, and then definitely as we onboard more and more complex requirements with respect to volume of data and complexity of the data, we can definitely look at using tools like Dremio in our environment. So end-to-end data flow, pretty straightforward from what I explained to you earlier. But again, on the left, we start with the source systems, depending on what the data is coming from, and then ingesting the data either on a daily basis or in a real-time basis or near real-time basis, and then doing a lot of the processing of the data using DBT or just plain BigQuery or Python and Spark. And then storage is either on BigQuery datasets or depending on the need, we're landing the data in Google Cloud Storage. And then we are doing a lot of the aggregation in Looker as well. So from a technical outcome standpoint, right? So once we are implemented, we are pretty much gotten a few of our pipelines out in production. Since the scope of work was too much, we obviously wanted to build a rinse and repeat methodology where we would capture all the development into a playbook so that it's easy to scale. Not with It's just easy to scale it because we wanted to keep it a repeatable process, and also because the body of work that we're taking on was a lot. We created a scorecarding mechanism to prioritize what projects you want to take on. Since this work was a lot of greenfield work, we got a chance to play with a lot of different tools and technologies. For example, we had to build the CI/CD process from scratch, working with Cloud Composer to do a lot of the development and testing and promotion of code from dev to production, and also using DBT expectations and in general putting in um, some framework for data quality. We basically have created a lot of these assets that could be reused across a lot of the projects that we take on. So with the work that we've done, we have one place where all the curated data sets are stored and accessed across the organization. The access to GBQ is pretty straightforward. If you guys have experience with it, it's pretty easy to get access and query. Um, and also, we have built the Looker environment in such a way that whoever is experienced in Looker can go in and start doing explorations and stuff like that. And also, eventually, if you're a super user of sorts, you can even go in and um, add in your own KPIs and stuff like that. So a quick use case win that we had recently was, we had an analyst who was working on a complex data set, which would take him about, at least 3 to 4 days to calculate like 4 metrics, go through a bunch of like curation steps and things like that, and then report that back to the business, right? And also he would be working on little bit of stale data. So with our automated process, we are able to now run daily workloads, be able to curate the data quickly, and also we're able to build out like 10 KPIs with almost fresh data that we were ingesting. So basically, the point is the goal was to free up everybody's time to do more of discovery work, other critical tasks, as opposed to tasks that were repeated or would take time and which we can automate using the tools available to us. I think we are at 10 minutes. I have one last thing to cover, which is lessons learned. So essentially, the lessons learned. So since this was a new program, the teams were not very aware of what the goals of the project were. And so we had to constantly socialize with what we were trying to do and how we're trying to do things and things like that. So we created a lot of artifacts for that. We had like office hours sessions every week so that people could come in and vet out projects to see whether it would make sense for us to take on those projects and things like that. And we also, just to show progress in terms of how we're doing certain things, how are these end products working, we also included a lot of these stakeholders into our demos that we were doing as well. So it's basically trying to create an education around what we're doing, how it's going to help them at the end of the day. And I alluded to one big thing in a few minutes ago was working with the data, right? Like that's one of the biggest challenges we face even now. Whenever we work with new data set, is to understand the data properly, right? So the data right off the bat is very complex. It's very deeply nested tag data that if you have experience with, you probably know about it. And also there is huge amounts of data that gets generated, right? Like think about a user on an iOS app or a web app or something where he's clicking, going back and forth between screens and things like that. So there's a lot of noise also that comes in with the data, and then we have to do a lot of like extreme like cleansing of the data or like filtering of the data. and things like that. So those are the type of challenges we faced while doing this work. So in the end, though, I would like to just summarize that we've been doing this work for the last 8, 9 months. We've onboarded four full-size implementations. Obviously, it's a level of complexity is a little bit different in each case, but we feel good that we have all the critical components in place that are needed um, to to support the needs of the business. And also take on more and more work on a faster basis, just because now we have a run book that we created, and we can easily as I said earlier, we have already tried to open it up to other users to come in and start building their own KPIs and stuff like that now, because the data is in a way that it can be shared across, which can be shared easily, and then the complexity of querying and parsing out the data is not there anymore. And that way, we are going towards a goal of decentralizing a lot of the development, so that then people are people are more can do more with what's out there. Sorry, I got a little bit distracted with one of the questions. So one of the big issues is quality of data. What is the process for elimination data is fit for purpose? So yeah, the quality of data is obviously the biggest thing, right? So we did multiple things. Obviously, while building the pipelines, we work with the stakeholders to understand like what's needed, what are the key process indicators, I would say, in terms of what is needed, right? So then it's a combination of using standard data quality checks that are there. So the DBT comes up with, I think, more than 100 data quality checks that we can implement. And also, a lot of the post-processing work that we do, we have put in some guardrails in terms of going back and checking on the data quality, and then reporting that back as part of our alerting and monitoring implementation. So that is something that we've done. And again, this is not one size fits all. It's mostly around, um, yeah, it's all case to case basis. Sure, Sanjeev. I hope that answers your question. So yeah, actually that's pretty much what I had in terms of material.